Okay, let's dive in. Try and picture this for a second. You're standing on probably one of the most remote bits of land anywhere on Earth, a tiny island, windswept, middle of the Pacific Ocean, miles and miles, thousands of miles from anywhere else. All you can hear is the ocean, the wind, and then you look up and you see them. Hundreds of huge stone figures. Some even have these massive red stone hats, just gazing out silently. It's just an instant hit of mystery, isn't it? Isolation and this deep feeling of an ancient world that's just vanished. So today we're doing a deep dive into Easter Island, or Rapa Nui, as its own people call it. It's home to one of those riddles that just sticks with you, you know? Carved right into the rock, the giant Moai statues. These aren't just sculptures. They feel like sentinels from some lost civilization. We're gonna try and unpack the big questions, like who had the skill, the sheer will to make almost 1,000 of these, and why? Why put so much effort into this? And maybe the most fascinating bit, how? How did they pull off this incredible feat with what seemed like pretty basic tools?
Yeah, what's really captivating, I think, about the Moai is that they look simple, right? Just these big stone figures. But when you start digging, they unravel this really complex story. It's about human ingenuity, deep spiritual belief, and ultimately, it's also a bit of a cautionary tale about how we interact with our environment. So our mission today is really to get into what these statues actually are. You know, break down the amazing ways they were made and moved, figure out their sacred purpose, because they definitely had one, and then face the poignant end of the culture that built them. When we sort of connect all those dots, you'll see why the Moai are still one of history's really compelling archaeological puzzles, packed with stuff that makes you rethink ancient capabilities.
And to really get the Moai, you first have to feel just how incredibly isolated Rapa Nui is. I mean, imagine sailing for weeks, maybe months, just blue horizon, nothing else. Then this tiny, tiny piece of land pops up. It's over, 3,500 kilometers from Chile. That's its closest continental neighbor. That's like sailing from New York way past Chicago, maybe further, but all across empty ocean. It really says something about the Polynesian explorers who found it in the first place. Amazing navigators.
Right, so you're on that ship, you've crossed this huge emptiness, and then it's Easter Sunday, 1722. This Dutch explorer, Jacob Roggeveen, and his crew, they stumble upon this island. Can you even imagine the shock, the sheer disbelief? You find this incredibly remote place, and it's just populated by hundreds of these massive stone figures, some are over 30 feet tall. Standing there on these old stone platforms, the Ahu, it must have felt completely surreal. Like, what is this place? Who did this?
Absolutely. And the people who did it were the native Rapa Nui, descendants of those Polynesian voyagers we mentioned. The main period they were carving these Moai was roughly between 1100 and 1600 CE. So a good chunk of time. And these aren't just random rocks, they're monolithic, meaning carved from a single piece of stone. Mostly tough. Tough as compressed volcanic ash. What's interesting is it's softer than something like granite, so you can carve details, but it's still definitely rock. The main place they got it was the Rano Waraku Quarry, a really sacred spot, basically the island's statue factory. If you go there now, you see hundreds of unfinished Moai. It looks like work just stopped mid-job. They're still there, half buried on the slopes. It gives us amazing clues about how they were made.
Okay, so when most people picture a Moai, they probably think of just the head, right? That's the famous image.
Exactly, that's the postcard shot.
But this is where it gets really interesting, based on recent work. Most of them aren't just heads. Archaeologists, especially the Easter Island Statue Project, they've done excavations over the years and confirmed, lots of these figures have full bodies, full torsos, buried deep underground, sometimes with really intricate carvings on them that were protected by the soil. We're talking huge, full-bodied sculptures, some nearly 10 meters tall, that's over 30 feet, and weighing, over 80 tons? The scale is just staggering, even before you knew about the bodies.
And the ingenuity involved.
Yeah.
I mean, think about the tools they had, or rather, didn't have. No metal tools, no wheels, no large animals like oxen or horses to help pull things. Carving these giants was this incredible act of patience and skill, and just knowing the stone. They use basalt picks Totoki, which is a harder volcanic rock, to chip away at the softer tuff.
Wow, just chipping away with stone.
Yeah. Imagine the time commitment. Months, maybe even years for just one statue, slowly shaping it out of the rock face. And those basalt picks would wear down, break, they'd constantly need resharpening or replacing. It just shows incredible determination.
Which brings us to, I guess, the biggest mystery of all for many people, moving them. Okay, so you've carved this colossal statue at Rano Waraku. Now you have to get it across really rough, uneven ground, sometimes for miles, like over 10 miles, to get it to its final spot on one of those ceremonial platforms, the Ahu, near the coast. How do they do it? with no cranes, no trucks, no wheels, no big animals. It really makes you wonder what kind of practical knowledge they had. Physics, leverage, teamwork.
Oh, absolutely. This is where the debate and research really heat up. There are two main ideas based on archaeology and also on the Rapa Nui's own oral traditions. One theory is that they dragged them horizontally, maybe on big wooden sledges, maybe using rollers made from those palm trees they had. That would have needed huge teams of people clearing paths. A massive effort.
Okay, dragging makes some sense.
The other theory, though, is maybe even more fascinating. It suggests they walked the statues upright.
Walked them? How?
Well, the idea is using ropes attached strategically and big teams pulling back and forth, rocking the statues side to side, sort of shuffling it forward inch by inch. Think about trying to move a really heavy fridge or something.
That sounds almost impossible, but also kind of amazing if they could do it.
Right. And here's the really cool part. It might sound like myth, but modern experiments, like those led by Terry Hunt and Carl Lipo, have actually shown it's possible.
Seriously, they made a Moai walk.
Basically, yes. Using replicas with the right number of people, the right rope placement, and a lot of coordination, they showed that these multi-ton statues can be rocked and shuffled forward upright. It's not just about brute strength. It's about understanding balance, the center of gravity, leverage. It's like they were making these giants dance across the landscape.
Wow, that completely changes how you think about their capabilities, doesn't it? Not just muscle, but real sophisticated practical knowledge.
Exactly. And that ingenuity wasn't just for show. We need to talk about the why. Why build them at all? For the Rapa Nui, these moai weren't just art pieces or engineering projects. They were deeply, profoundly sacred.
So what did they represent?
Each statue is generally believed to represent a deified ancestor, a powerful chief, or maybe the founder of a lineage. They were placed on the Ahu platforms to watch over the villages, the communities. They were protectors. They were thought to hold mana, which is like spiritual power or life force, connecting the living generation to their ancestors and to the gods.
And where they put them wasn't random either, right?
Yeah.
You mentioned they face inland.
Almost all of them, yes. Back to the sea, eyes looking towards the villages and the land. That's key. They're guarding the community, overseeing the agricultural land, ensuring prosperity.
It's like they're keeping watch.
Precisely. And there's more. Their placement often seems deliberate in relation to other things, too. Maybe aligned with solstices, equinoxes, important stars, or specific points in the landscape that held spiritual significance. It suggests a really sophisticated understanding of astronomy, the seasons, and sacred geography. They literally built their beliefs, their history, right into the island itself.
It's such an incredible story of achievement and belief, but there's a darker side to the story, isn't there? This amazing culture capable of all this, it didn't last. By the time Europeans like Roggeveen arrived, things had clearly gone wrong. Many of those moai weren't standing proudly anymore. They'd been deliberately pulled down. And the island itself was apparently quite barren. What happened?
Yes, that's the tragic turn. The evidence strongly suggests a major ecological disaster played a huge role in the decline of their civilization. The leading theory, sometimes called ecocide, proposes that the Rapa Nui, in their drive to build and transport more and bigger moai, effectively destroyed their own environment.
How? By cutting down trees.
Primarily, yes. They relied heavily on the island's unique palm forests. They needed the timber for rollers or sledges to move the statues, for fuel for building houses, and crucially, for making large canoes. As they cleared more and more forest, they passed a point of no return. Deforestation led to terrible soil erosion. The soil washed away, making farming much harder. Freshwater sources might have been affected too.
And no trees meant no big canoes.
Exactly, which meant they couldn't fish offshore as effectively, cutting off a vital source of food. It created a spiral of resource depletion.
So environmental collapse leads to what? Famine? War?
All of the above, it seems. The scarcity of resources likely led to intense competition between different clans or groups on the island. This probably escalated into internal conflict, even warfare. And in that context, the moai, which were symbols of a clan's power and prestige, became targets.
So they started knocking each other's statues down.
That appears to be what happened. Toppling a rival clan's moai was a way to humiliate them, to destroy their mana, their connection to their ancestors, during a period of intense social stress and desperation. It's a really powerful and frankly sobering story about how human ambition, even when tied to something sacred, can clash with environmental limits, with devastating results.
It really is. But the story isn't completely finished, right? People are still studying Easter Island.
Absolutely. Archaeologists are constantly working there, using new techniques. And yes, as we mentioned, recent digs have revealed much more about the statues themselves, finding those buried bodies with carvings, petroglyphs on their backs, things nobody had seen for centuries. It shows there's still so much to learn, literally just beneath the surface.
Yet even with all this new knowledge, there are still big questions hanging in the air.
Oh, definitely. Big mysteries remain. Like, why were so many statues left unfinished back at the Ranararaku quarry? Was it a sudden crisis that made them stop? Or were some meant to stay there?
And what about the truly enormous ones? Some of the biggest ever carved were never even moved from the quarry. Why attempt something so huge if you couldn't move it?
Good question. Maybe they were status symbols even unfinished. Or maybe the plan changed. We don't know for sure. And while the ecological collapse theory is strong, the exact sequence of events, the full picture of their societal decline, there are still debates. Was it just deforestation? Or were other factors like contact with outsiders and disease also critical tipping points? It kind of leaves you, the listener, thinking, doesn't it? Even with all our science, some ancient puzzles just don't give up all their secrets easily. What else could they be telling us?
Wow. What a journey we've taken in this deep dive, from thinking about that incredible isolation to the awe of discovery, the sheer genius of carving and somehow moving these giants without modern tech, and then grappling with the sacred purpose behind it all, and finally, the really tough story of their decline. These moai, whether they're standing tall or lying face down, they're just incredibly powerful symbols.
They really are. They stand as this incredible testament to human creativity, our deep need for spiritual connection, but also, yeah, a stark reminder of how fragile the balance can be between our ambitions and the planet that sustains us.
Yeah.
It shows what can happen when that balance gets fundamentally broken.
So as we picture those silent stone faces still watching over Rapa Nui and all its history, it really makes you wonder, what lessons from that distant past echo loudest for us today with the challenges we face?
Could there be more secrets hidden in those stones, or maybe in the land itself, that might help us understand ourselves, our relationship with Earth, a little better?
Definitely something to think about. Those silent giants still have a lot to say, perhaps.